morning guys. Today I am going to tell you the tips to solve professional knowledge type question asked in IT officer, either as SBI IT officer or IBPS IT officer. These points will be helping you in both of them. So I'll be telling you one point by one so that you can remember. At least you should remember this point so that you have the basic idea about what type of questions can be asked in the examination. I'm going to cover all the topics, but one thing to remember, do not confuse between these topics. Like some topics are between operating system, some are from networking, and some are a mixture of these. So few things are common in both of them and other subjects. Approximately there are 16 to 17 subjects which are asked in IBPS IT officer. So we are going to cover all of these. These are the points that I have made from multiple books containing IT officer types questions in the professional knowledge area. These are all the points that are asked in the previous examination and that can be asked. They are both for scale 1 and scale 2. So here we start. I'll be telling with point 1 and point 2 and so on. Okay, so first point we have is DCL. What is DCL? It is data control language which is used to grant and revoke permissions into the database. Point 2. What are the difference between packet switched network and circuit switched network? Packet switched network move data in separate small packets, that is blocks, whereas in circuit switched network data requires a point-to-point connection during calls. It has a reserved channel for whole connection. Meanwhile, if the circuit switched network is connected between 2 points, there is a dedicated channel for that in which the data flows. Next we have is point number 3, Nyquist-Shannon theorem. One thing you should remember about it is a kind of a sampling theorem. It is used to convert analog to digital conversion. To result in the reproduction of signal, slices in this theorem are known as samples, and number of samples per second are known as sampling rate or sampling frequency. Highest frequency component determines the bandwidth of signal, and higher the frequency, greater the bandwidth. You don't need to solve out the whole theorem, what the theorem is, just remember the basic concept of it. If any question is asked in the examination, you keep on reminding what the concept was, what was the basic idea, how it is related to that. No need to do that guys, just remember the basic point. Next we have is full form of virus. It is a vital information resource under siege. Next is, what is Winchester disk? Winchester disk is a kind of a hard disk which is also known as disk stack. This question is asked many times, what is Winchester disk? So you answer, it is a kind of a disk stack. It is provided by IBM, which has a 30 MB storage which is fixed plus 30 MB of removable storage. Next question can be asked about the symbols of ER diagrams and the symbols used in DFD diagrams. I cannot show you the symbols, so it's necessary for you to just look at the symbols so that you can remind those symbols. Next we have is, what is fence register? Fence register is used to protect the memory of the system. Likewise, we can remember a fencing is made at the border. So the fence is a kind of a protection. Next is, what type of processing in the computer system we have? There are 3 types of processing: serial processing, batch processing, multi-programming. These are 3 kinds of processing. Point 7 is, how many types of operating system we have? First is batch operating system, multi-programming operating system, network operating system, and distributed operating system. So in multi-programming operating system, we have subdivisions that are multitasking, multi-user, time sharing, and real time. The most important question that asked in the examination is about real-time systems. What are the real-time systems? How they work? If a banking system needs to acquire system, so what kind of system they acquire? So see, in banking we need only real-time systems, like we have ATM. In ATM is a kind of a real-time system where one user credits and one user debits, or transactions are controlled by the ATM, which is a kind of an embedded system. This question is also asked in the interview, that what is embedded system. So embedded system is a kind of real-time system which is a combination of both hardware and a software. Next we have is operating system structure. Our structure is of four kinds. First is layered structure, kernel structure, virtual machine, and client server model. So layered structure is simple in which the system is divided into layers, that is user interface, then the kernel, and so on. You don't need to remember what are these layers and all that, you just remember what is the structure. Next is we have kernel structure, in which there are multiple things. First is kernel create and delete the processes, that is managed by internal processes. Next is process scheduling. Meanwhile, example, two processes are seeking for a resource, then kernel will decide which process to be executed first by process scheduling. Next is memory management and input-output management, which also comes under kernel structure. Next is process synchronization. Synchronization, guys, is maintaining a kind of a balance between two kinds of processes. Like we have one process going in one tab of Chrome and another process going out in another tab of Chrome. So the processor will decide between these 2 points. So what is this? It is kind of a synchronization. Likewise we do in our general language also. Next is IPC help. IPC help is inter-process communication. Meanwhile, two processes are there. How they communicate with each other, it's known as IPC help. Next is virtual machine. It is a kind of a virtual environment that is created on your system, which allows you to create to install another machine and use. Likewise, you can use Mac on your Windows and Windows on your Mac and other Windows product, so that you can have an interface which will be treated as a virtual. Next is we have client server model that we use in our daily life, that is internet. We are client and we are accessing internet from a server located at any other place which provides a service. That is a server and we are client. So that is client server model. Next step we have is 8, that is process states. So first divide it into two parts. Process, there are two types of processes. First is CPU bound and another is input output bound. And we have states for the processes, that is when a process starts, what are the phases under which it goes. So the question that can be asked about this is how many states are there, at what time of the process goes into this stage and that stage. So these types of questions can be asked. So processes I have told you, CPU bound and input bound, and the states are new, ready, running, suspended, sleep, wait, and terminate. Next we have is scheduler. Scheduler is a kind of a program which schedules the program processes that are being used in our computer. There are 3 types of schedulers: long term, medium term, and short term. Scheduling is a kind of a process which is scheduling and based on performance criteria. Likewise we have CPU utilization, like how much CPU is utilized. We can calculate it by throughput, turnaround time, waiting time, and response time that you might have studied. And there are scheduling algorithms present. We have FCFS, which is a primitive. Remember this, FCFS is primitive. SGF, round robin, they both are non-primitive. प्रिमिटिव इज सिंपली जिनको हम बीच में डिस्टर्ब कर सकते हैं, नॉन प्रिमिटिव आर जिनको हम बीच में डिस्टर्ब नहीं कर सकते. जस्ट रिमेंबर दिस थिंग, यू विल सॉल्व द क्वेश्चन. नो नीड टू रिमेंबर any other thing than that. So we also have a question about this. So remember this, what is schedulers and all that. Next is what medium term schedulers. They handle swapped processes. Likewise, we have two frames and they are required to switch off the memory between them. So the process swapping is handled by medium term schedulers. Next point we have is priority based scheduling and multi-level queue scheduling. One question can be asked about this, so guys, if you get anything knowledge about this, you can read, but it's not necessary to read the whole topic about this. Next we have is context switching. Context switching is the processing of the interrupt to switch the CPU to another process. It requires saving all the registers for all the processes and then loading the new processes. Likewise, we have 10 processes in our system, and the CPU wants to decide which process to execute first. Then it will load all the processes, save their states. Likewise, we have discussed the states: new, ready, running, suspended, and other. And it decides between old processes and then the processes whose states it has saved. It decides and then switches the context to which to execute first. Likewise, I told you in Chrome we have two tabs. If we click on the first, the CPU will start showing us the first, but its background but the process of the second tab is also running in the background. And then next it loads the new processes. That's all for today. We will continue in the next topic.